Right. Okay. That worship's just blown me away. Absolutely blown me away. My key verse today before I start, I don't sound echoey, do I? Am I okay? Okay. Is Psalm 139 and verse 14, where it says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. What I'm going to talk about today is a couple of key verses there, is being fearful about the Lord, celebrating how marvellous his works are as well. And I want to end with just celebrating our bodies and who we are as Christians as well. So that's what, I couldn't give it a name, but that's what it was about anyway. But I'm just going to start off with just a quote from a movie, if I may, and then we'll work through from there. So this is the quote. It was supposed to be with an American accent, but I won't do it. And it says, I am no one special, just a common man with common thoughts. I've led a common life. There are no monuments dedicated to me, and my name will soon be forgotten. But in one respect, I have succeeded as gloriously as anyone who has ever lived. I've loved another with all my heart and my soul, and for me, that has always been enough. Any ideas what the movie is? No, you're not allowed to say. Well, the movie is The Notebook. The Notebook. It's a fantastic film, and it put Mr. Sparks centre stage, and the actual quote itself is probably what made the movie itself. But the bits I want to focus on, yes, it's a great film, arguably a fantastic quote as well, and I think it would move any one of us. If you've not seen the film, I would recommend it anyway. Problem is as Christians, we know better, and that is because we are special. We are special because in Ephesians 1 verse 4 it says, for he chose us in him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in his sight. And the other thing as well is loving someone completely is a privilege. Not everyone gets to do it, and it is a privilege to love someone with all your heart. But Jesus, he left us not a request, but a command. And his command was in John 13, 34 to 35, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Bit of a problem sometimes with that is it's all right to love someone, but to try and love lots of different people, especially if you've got a bit of baggage, can be a bit of a problem, and maybe a little bit of dysfunction, which can be also a bit of a problem as well. So if you're being honest with yourself, trying to love a stranger when you don't think a whole lot about yourself sometimes. So it's a bit of a challenge to love yourself, but also to love another and to share that love as well. Could be a bit of a bridge too far sometimes. So before I chose, or God chose me, shall we say, to live in Christ, I used to live my life like a bit of a courtroom drama. I wasn't in the dock, I was the judge. And I was pretty good at it, actually. So if anyone played up and they said something that was a bit off, I didn't like it, or they cut me up driving to work, or looked at me in a funny way, then I used to have what I called a harbour of ill will deep inside here, and I used to, come on then, in you come, you'll come in with me. And the problem with that is that harbour got pretty big over time, actually. And it wasn't the way forward, and it created lots of stress in my life, and it could probably do the same for anyone else anyway. So it's not an ideal thing being a judge, shall we say, in anyone's life anyway. And I think it's and also as well, what you can learn to do is sometimes you can put God in the dock, and you can start having a few choice words with him as well, and blaming him for what's gone on in your life, what's gone on in your family, or what's going on in the world. And lots of people choose to do that. And quite frankly, I probably could have carried on doing that. But in December 2000, God got hold of me, and he had a plan for me, and it was a bit of a setup. And thankfully, it changed the way that who I am completely as a person. And I started a new journey of salvation, and I'm still on that journey now anyway. And what I learned during that time is a fear of God. And for me, it's a respect and it's a reverence as you go deeper into a conversation. In Proverbs 2:1-6, it says, "My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives you wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding." Once we've got this reverence of God, of who really God is, then things can start changing in life, and we can maybe start going up a few gears. We can be thankful. We can learn to be thankful for what we have and who we are. And we can learn to honour our bodies and the life that we've been given. That can completely change, and that can really set you on a great path, shall we say. A life of stewardship. It's not an easy life of stewardship, but becoming a steward in your life and taking responsibility, instead of having a life of what I would call lasciviousness, i.e. no restraints, you can learn about temperance in your life. I'm not so good in all areas of the temperance. Still have a problem with chocolate and sweets and stuff like that. But anyway, I guess it's no longer feeding into ego. Rather than because whatever you feed, you've got to starve something. So it's about feeding that stewardship role that you've got. And it's exercising, it's eating properly, and it's getting some more sleep as well. Some examples of this in Genesis 2:1-3. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the seventh day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he'd rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So if he can do it, we should be able to do it anyway, really. Daniel is an example of a healthy diet in the book of Daniel for him and for his friends and his service to the king. It says in Daniel 1:12-16, "Please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearances with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see." So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. The Apostle Paul suggested physical training had some limited value. In 1 Timothy 4:8, it talks about, "For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things." And just talking about Jesus there for a minute, Jesus, remember, encountered a busy life and ministry, and at times it left him depleted to the point where he slept through a storm. In Mark 4:38-40, it says that Jesus was in the stern sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him up, saying to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Like Jesus, we can learn to be refreshed and filled ready for duty by retreating to a quiet place and spending time with Father God. In Hebrews 4:15 it says, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. In fact, Jesus encouraged his followers to do the same. In Mark 6:31, it says, then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. And it's taking that time to get some rest that makes the difference. I only learned recently, and it's something that I want to get more into, is if you can imagine your body and you have, when you communicate with God, you have the surface communication where, morning God, how you doing? Hope, having a nice day, and I bless you, Lord, and stuff like that. And that's great. You can do the what I call the shallows, but then you've got to take it, and then you can take it down a level to the midland area of your life with the, I've got a few wants and needs. Can you help us out? And kind of communicate with him that way. But the best communication is when you go down into the depths and you meet him in the depths of your soul, and that's when you really meet him, sort of thing. So that's something that I'm learning every day anyway. So, in order for us to continue this path of loving others, we need to ask God to examine our hearts and emotions and desires in order to reveal any hidden sin that we may have. In Psalm 139, 23 to 24, it says, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offense way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. It's also important for us to acknowledge the presence of suffering in this life, but don't leave it there. Seek God's comfort. Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Worship and serve God. Allow him to lift our souls to him. Just an example of that is this morning is that this sanctuary isn't a pavilion when we're here. This is a proper sanctuary of God. And when I come here and we have the most amazing worship leader and the most amazing worship is, I'm no singer and I'm no dancer, but I know that when I join in the worship and presence of God and I find myself swaying rather badly and dancing, shall we say, I sense him every single time. I sense him in my hands, and I could feel as I move my hands, and I forget everyone around me. And that's going down to the depths. I can keep it at the surface stuff and have a little sing and everything else, but it's going down to the depths with him. Psalm 143:8 says, let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. Show me the way I should go, for you I entrust with my life. We're starting to get somewhere for this journey, for now is the time to love and to serve others. And examples of that is I have a small shop just down the road, and I get the opportunity to serve people, and I have people from all walks of life that come in. I get people who are going to funerals regularly and they might have forgotten a tie or something or other, and I serve them, and I make a point of just blessing them and saying to them, I hope that it goes well with them. Something they probably wouldn't normally get in any shop. I've had people going to court, and I'm not judged, although a few years ago I would have done it, but I've not judged, and I've kind of made a point of saying, do you know what, whatever you've done, I really wish you well, and I hope things work out for you, and he might remember that. I've had guys come in, and I had one guy coming in the week, and he looked very unkempt, bless him, and his belt was hanging down, his trousers were falling down, and he wanted a belt, and I found myself on my knees taking his old belt off and then looping through his belt. And there's that trust, because you're serving someone and it's genuine, and you can see that he actually trusts what you're trying to do, you know, and that's an example, just a simple example of how we can serve. And one of the things as I prepared this morning and I was soaking in the tub is that one of the things that come to me, which I think God spoke to me directly, is for all of us is now is a time to work hard at serving. Is to, you know, I don't know what that means to all of us, but it's about working hard, keeping it simple. So yes, work, but work hard. So take your time to rest. We've been through that, but now's the time to work hard. Mark 12:31. These are examples. The second is this: love your neighbour as yourself. There is no commandment greater than this. 1 Peter 4:10, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. And to point others to the one who calls. That's a great calling. I mean, and this is where you've got to be careful, is I think over the years, Pastor has constantly said about watch out for the pitfalls of gurus of motivation, gurus of self-help, and there is so much of that out there now that you've really got to be careful, and it's about keeping it and bringing it to God. That is the one trusted place. Matthew 11:28-29 says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, so take it to him, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. You're not getting that anywhere else. You can go and seek motivators out there if you want, and you might feel a little bit of a flutter, but ultimately you've got to take it to the source. That's the place to take it. And just finally, I've got a quote by St. Augustine. He was a Christian philosopher in the year 354 to 430. And he said that men go abroad to wonder at the heights of mountains, at the huge waves of the sea, at the long courses of the rivers, at the vast compass of the ocean, at the circular motions of the stars, and they pass themselves without wondering. And I think we can all be so guilty of that. We have a wonderful world. There might be some issues, and we might not want to travel too much in it at the moment, especially if you want to go somewhere for Easter. Don't. But we have a wonderful world, but we don't need to go far to recognise the glory of God. And it is within each and every one of us. And what I've done is I've compiled a list to celebrate us, our bodies, and the uniqueness of our body. I'll just go through the list that I've got here. Did you know that everyone has a unique smell, except for identical twins? Your nose can remember 50,000 different scents, many of which are tied to memories. Women are better smellers. Yeah. Yeah. Just 2% of the population have no sense of smell at all. Probably a few more at the moment, I would think. Probably. If saliva cannot dissolve something, you cannot taste it. A fetus acquires its fingerprints at 3 months. Babies are pound for pound stronger than an ox. Yep. Your teeth start growing 6 months before you are born. I'll leave that one alone there. During your lifetime, you will produce enough saliva to fill 2 swimming pools. Yeah. Your feet have 500,000 sweat glands and can produce more than a pint of sweat a day. Your sneezes regularly exceed 100 miles an hour. Yeah. Coughs clock at 60. Women blink twice as many times as men, which kind of messes things up. When I was young, I thought they were blinking at me and looking at me, and they were just blinking, so that's not so good, is it? Yeah. The average adult heart is about the size of 2 fists. The surface area of a human lung is equal to a tennis court. You get a new stomach lining every 3 to 4 days. I've got a few more, so I'll just go through. What I'm trying to get you to think of is just how awesome, when we spoke back at the beginning, when it said that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and it talks about God knitting you together in the secret place. The human body is estimated to have 60,000 miles of blood vessels, meaning if it was laid end to end, they could stretch around the world more than twice.
Yikes.
The acid in your stomach is strong enough to dissolve razor blades. How does it stay there? The human heart creates enough pressure to squirt 30 feet. Human hair, bar being inflammatory, is virtually indestructible. There are so many hairs per square inch on your body as a chimpanzee. I didn't know that. 80% of the brain is water. On average, the human body contains enough iron to make a nail 1 inch long. There are approximately 10,000 taste buds on the human tongue. While awake, your brain produces enough electricity to power a light bulb. A quarter of your bones are in your feet. An average-sized chap eats about 33 tons of food in his lifetime. That's 6 elephants. You can't breathe and swallow at the same time. When listening to music, your heartbeat will sync with the rhythm. Around 80% of what you think is taste, and around 80% of what we think is taste is actually smell. And just touching on DNA, DNA is so narrow and compact that in genes in our body cells, it would fit into an ice cube. And yet, if you unwound it and joined it end to end, the strand would stretch from the earth to the sun and back more than 400 times. That's from a Christian book called You Are Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. A critical function of our brain is to sort out what we should and remember and not remember. That's how clever it is. It's not a computer, our brain. You know, it's something that's real. Our brains are designed to change and adapt and self-repair. It's not a computer. It is 3 pounds of living, growing cells that constantly form new connections and change old ones. And every time you blink, your brain fills the gap of your vision about 20,000 times every day. Those are all the pointers there. I just wanted to, I guess, it was my way of trying to get each and every one of us to, when I wrote those down and was reading those, I was just amazed at how awesome our bodies and we are as people. And yet, you know, as Augustine goes on to say, that we pass ourselves by. And we are amazing. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. So that's what I was going to share with you today. And thank you so much for listening. I hope you found it of interest. And I shall pass back to Pastor Schmidt.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Mark. And we appreciate you taking the time out to prepare and for blessing us with that wonderful message. Give Mark a hand. Well, it's early. Blessed are the short-winded. They shall be invited back. Thank you very much, Mark. That is appreciated. Wow. I'm still thinking about the complexities of the human body. A quarter of my bones